There is little doubt that Bryce Kreed is one of those amazing characters that when you read him, he is very, very hard to forget. Even more amazing is its author, the one and only Mr. Bryan Tann. Joe Compton got to sit down with his friend and talk all about Bryce Kreed, what the relaunch of this series has become, and what is in store for Mr. Kreed down the line. As we turn the spotlight onto Bryce Kreed and Bryan Tann's The Darklands series, Path of Redemption.
I tried to make this whole book different than the norm. Because keep in mind, I wrote this book around when Twilight was big. And I was shopping this book to publishers, and I all heard the same thing. Well, there's going to be no market for vampires because of Twilight. Now, granted, the book wasn't very well written. It needed a lot of work. In a lot of ways, I feel like it still needs a lot of work, but it's where it's going to be. Mm-hmm. And I think some of the weaknesses or challenges of it in the writing are some of its charm. Because it shows, I think, how I've grown as a writer.
Sure.
So, but I mean, hearing people tell me that no one's going to read my book because of Twilight really hurt. Yeah. So I really tried to make this series so much different than Twilight, while also paying an homage to White Wolf Studios' Vampire the Masquerade, because that's where I was able to give this character life. You know what I mean?
Blade an influence as well, a little bit?
Yes and no. Bryce, in the very beginning, rode a motorcycle and at first he wore a black leather trench coat and carried a sword. And then I got rid of the black leather trench coat, because it's like, dude, this isn't Crow City of Angels. If you're wearing a trench coat, you're not riding a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Because you're going to die. So then he wore a biker jacket. And then it was like, but now the motorcycle thing is getting way too cliche. Mm-hmm. So I shifted it and I got rid of the leather jacket because vampires wearing leather, blah, blah, blah. So I decided, he wears a flannel. He won't wear all black. And he drives a pickup truck. Now, here's the thing with the pickup truck. That's an homage to my Uncle Willie H. God rest his soul. One of the only human beings on this planet that ever terrified me. He drove a big old pickup truck that he kept in pristine condition. And he always had weapons in the truck because he was I believe he was a Korean War vet. So he always had a gun on his hip and a rifle in his truck. And the running joke of the family was, that he was somewhere he'd never been if a dog turned up its leg near his truck. Because he was notorious for shooting at any dog that went to go pee on his truck. And he would miss once just to send a warning.
Yeah.
Because he was very accurate. Nobody touched his car. No one leaned on his car. When people in the town saw his car coming, he lived down south. And he had respect and fear of everybody.
Nice.
So if his truck was coming, you left it alone. So Bryce Kreed having the truck is sort of my nod to that man, who I don't really remember because I only met him once. But I remember being afraid of him and respecting him. And because of that, I loved him. So Blade started out as a little bit of an inspiration, but then I started to shy away. Mm-hmm. But Blade is sort of an inspiration for another character that's in the Darklands universe that hasn't been introduced yet.
It's interesting what you said already about, that this story wasn't really that well written and everything like that. We kind of always feel that way, regardless of where we are in our process and who we are as writers. But but especially so about our first characters, our first kind of journey into worlds and things of that nature. So I'm curious if that is something that you're forgiving of yourself for a little bit more because this is kind of your first character that you created, or are you more hard on yourself because of that?
I always want to improve. So I think I'm always going to be a little bit hard on myself.
Mm-hmm.
But just because the writing structure isn't maybe what I would like it to be, the story itself is on point. I believe in the story. Both books are over 100,000 words. So I initially wanted this series to be 5 books long.
Okay.
Instead, it's 2 with a third forthcoming. Theoretically, the third book could have been the 5th book, and these 2 books, The Enforcer and The Hunted, could be split in half. But I didn't because I have a thing against cliffhangers, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Even though if you read Invincible Heart, I'm a liar. Because there's a huge cliffhanger in Invincible Heart.
But you can kind of forgive that because it's not really your world, right?
Correct. Well, it's my character, but not my world. And I share the character in the world. But yeah, but at the same token, I could have ended it differently, but I didn't. I think that was the point where I kind of wanted to mess around. I think that was my evolution. Keep on wanting more. So in The Enforcer, I probably could have ended the book. There's a scene where an assassin attacks the governor's meeting around the midway point of The Enforcer. Mm-hmm. Thinking back now, hindsight being 2020, I could have ended the book there. Mm-hmm. And then continued on the rest of the way. But I didn't. I just made it one big read. And in The Hunted, I probably could have ended the book at the big reveal in the middle. But I didn't. But I think the ending part that I did, and shout out to Ed Souter and the beta reader Chris that he selected, who just kicked back and said, "Wow." I guess I kind of ended it on a cliffhanger though, but mm-hmm. it's a gap bridger to the 3rd book.
Give everybody kind of an insight into Bryce Kreed. Who is Bryce Kreed? What is he about?
Bryce Kreed was the son of the future chieftain of his tribe in Nigeria in the late 1600s. Mm-hmm. His family was brought to America in the transcontinental slave trade. They were sold into slavery by his uncle because his uncle wanted power. His uncle was the younger brother. His uncle was not as skilled of a warrior. He was more cunning. Mm-hmm. He wasn't a warrior. So he sold his brother and family into slavery and took over the tribe after murdering his father, mm-hmm. and took over the surrounding tribe to build his own empire. So Bryce was essentially raised in his younger years. He knew he had a nobility, very regal, and it became rebellion. And now, as he became an adult, he had an anger toward him because he knew what he was, but how he was being treated as lesser than. And he's carried that sort of bitterness and that anger into his vampiric life. Mm-hmm. And it's only grown by seeing the state of his people nearly 400 years later. And seeing, I think that if I were Bryce Kreed in the 2020s, I'd probably be way more annoyed than ever. Based on disinformation campaigns, based on, number one, like the idea of social media and willful ignorance, mm-hmm. and how in Black culture, we put so much more stock in what entertainers and athletes have to say, mm-hmm. instead of listening to our own doctor. So Bryce Kreed is the type of person where he saw what he and his people were supposed to be, mm-hmm. and then how they've been the what's been snatched from us and how we've had to adapt to survive. And the way that we've adapted to survive is sort of he sees as kind of lesser than.
Mm-hmm.
So he has a deep seated pain and anger and bitterness to that.
Mm.
But he's very proud, and he
Mm.
carries himself with a sense of pride. But he's also he's also a malcontent in a lot of ways. So he searches for something because he knows he can't control people.
Mm.
So what can he control? Himself. And he likes to fight because he's a warrior.
Mm.
And sometimes he enjoys getting put into situations that are almost impossible to survive to feel alive.
Mm. Kind of a John Wick meets Jack Reacher kind of idea.
I would think so. Throw a little bit of a Psalm from Warrior and a little bit of Amos from The Expanse, and I think you've got something there.
Nice, interesting.
But with the regal nature of T'Challa.
I'm kind of curious about the setting that you put him into, the Darklands. How much of a role does that play in how he reacts to what's going on around him? Was that important to you? Was the setting kind of, you needed to be in kind of this other world in order to kind of convey this character's pride and his abilities?
Yes, in a lot of ways, yes, because in everything I write, I want the world to be its own character. I want it to be ever evolving. In future works in this world, events from previous books are going to shape how things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of like in our world.
Mm-hmm.
And I really feel that in this world, Bryce, in the very beginning, is alone.
Mm-hmm.
He has a friend. He has his brother. He has a family that we don't meet, that we don't even know about, but he's still alone. There's a longing in this world. There's a something missing. And that's why he lives apart. That's why he keeps everyone at arm's length. And I think that in this setting, it makes it a lot easier to sort of showcase who he is, how he is, why he makes the choices he makes. Because he's searching for something. And yeah, this world of and I couldn't put him in, say, I could put him in our world because the Darklands is it sort of runs parallel. You know what I mean? Like this is that the Darklands is the absolute parallel to this world.
Yeah.
You like of all of the parallel universes out there, I think this one most closely resembles ours.
I'm curious to talk to you a little bit about where you are now as opposed to where you were then, and the idea that this was a character that had to get out of your head, that you were in a very dark place, and that this character needed to come out to kind of quell that a little bit. You're in a very good space where you are now. Did you have worries and concerns about revisiting this world and kind of bringing up old feelings? Did that ever cross your mind at all? Or
not with this.
Yeah.
Not with this. Actually, my next book is the one that worries me about revisiting, and I think I've purposefully stayed away from it because of that. Because I'm delving into so much. This here, no. Bryce to me is always going to be a safety blanket. If I can never write anything else again, I can write about Bryce. Bryce and I have come to an understanding within that he's always going to be there.
Yeah.
He'll always be there. The concussion, however, that's a story that it is hard to go back to. I want to finish that book, but it's hard to do because I'm taking myself back to that darkness.
Right.
I am willingly walking back into that inky black hell. But I'm also changing decisions. and turning myself into the monster that I thought Bryce was making me into.
Mm.
And that's what scares me.
Mm.
This, no. I can revisit Bryce every single day of the week and twice on Sunday, and I'm fine. Because Bryce, in a lot of ways, signifies strength, moral character, despite what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Bryce, to me, is remembering who you are when the world tries to steal it from you.
Mm. In creating this characters in this world, where do you feel like most of you is in? Is it in Bryce, or is it in the surroundings, the supporting cast? Do you have a supporting character that you put a lot more of you into?
Yeah, a lot of me is in Bryce. A lot. I'd say Bryce is like 90% me
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of ways. The side characters are a combination of people that I've known or behaviors and personalities that I want to have in people surrounding me.
Mm.
Like Bryce has a younger brother that makes fun of him, constantly pokes fun at him. Bryce's love interest, she's got no problem looking him in the eyes, despite how hulking he is and how much fear he inspires in others. She looks him in the face and tells him what's what. He's got a friend of that love interest who has, who will call him out. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
all the side characters are people around him to keep him humble.
Mm.
Because I promised myself that if I ever saw a monicum of success, that I was never going to change, that I was not going to let success change me.
Mm.
Because how many times do we hear stories about people that as soon as they get a taste of success, their attitudes change?
Yeah. A lot.
And yes, and I don't want that.
We've talked before about how, for people who don't know you, and I don't know many people who wouldn't know you because you're awesome and everybody should know you.
And there's a lot. We both know that's the issue with being indie. No one knows as many of us as there should be.
Yeah, that's true.
But at the same token, I appreciate it.
But you're a movie savant, and you see things very much in a cinematic way, and we've talked about this about your writing before. But are you, now that you've been doing a podcast for what, almost 3 years now, 4 years? Did the podcast
4 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 4
And
years now.
you've been examining movies. You've been talking about structure and examining it from a writer's perspective. Do you view the books that you've created? I know that you didn't want to rewrite these. You wanted to kind of let them be what they are, but you just wanted to enhance them. And did you look at them differently cinematically than you did when you first wrote them?
Yes, I did, and I did make I made quite a few changes to the fight scenes because I saw them in a different light. I saw them in a different way, and I tried to improve upon them because it was almost like I was lacking the ability to describe them the way I wanted to. So I think that I was actually able to make some of the fight sequences and the action sequences a little bit more cinematic, so that you can see it in your mind's eye. When Bryce walks into that bar, you see a 6'4", 250-pound black guy walk into a redneck bar, close the door, and lock it, and realize it's not him that's in danger. It's almost kind of like the first time that you see Reggie Hammond walk into the redneck bar in 48 hours. Something's about to pop off.
It's like a Bronx Tale too, right? When the bikers.
Yeah, now you guys can't leave. Exactly. Exactly. Or even when Bryce is confronted on the top floor of the parking garage.
Uh-huh.
It's like you feel that there is a concern, but at the same token, it's like there's so much of this book left. Yeah, he's going to make it through.
Mm.
It's kind of like John Wick.
Mm-hmm.
You see John Wick he gets thrown off of a balcony and hits the ground with no bounce. But you know he's going to get up and kick some more ass, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, all of the film reviewing and everything definitely helped me to become more cinematic in the rewriting, the retooling, as it were. And I'm more happy about the way these books have been retooled now. Because, I mean, even in The Hunted, I did a lot less retooling. We made a lot of changes. Shout out to Ed Souter, who's the only person I'll probably ever allow to edit my books, because we work so well together. And we understand where each other's coming from. Even with like the retooling of, because he understands things that I don't about vehicles, weapons, and so forth. And I was able to understand better how to make it seem and look based on the real world know-how that he has. So yeah, it's a lot more cinematic. Like Bryce's truck is way more badass than I thought it was.
Nice.
Because I initially wanted his truck to be Riggs's truck from Lethal Weapon 2. But with the way it's changed up, it will blow that truck out of the water 5 times over from last Sunday. It is just that better of a vehicle.
What did you miss most about Bryce?
The fact that Bryce is so powerful of a character that when he's in control, there's nothing to worry about. Things may look ugly, but it's always going to turn out on the right side of things. Nice. It's always going to be okay. And that's something that I got to remember for myself. As ugly as this life gets, as horrible as situations are, it's going to be okay. You just got to keep fighting. You just got to keep your hands up. And when the impossible situation comes up, make it possible.
You know, I chuckled when I read the blurb, because like I have like a daily ritual on with some YouTube videos, and anytime I see the name Blake, I instantly go to Key and Peele. And I just want to go, Balake. It's Enya
Balake.
You want to go to war, Balake? We should go to war.
No. Blake. I don't even know where I got that name, to be honest. I don't even know where I got her last name. I think I just wanted something that was just really plain and boring.